വേദിയിൽ ശാസ്ത്രിക്കുന്ന എല്ലാ ബഹുമാനീയരെ പല പ്രസിദ്ധപ്പെട്ട എഴുത്തുകാരും ഡിസ്റ്റിങ്വിഷ്ഡ് നാഷണൽ ഫിഗേഴ്സും ഈ വേദിയിൽ ഇരിക്കുന്നുണ്ട്. എല്ലാവരും പേരെടുക്കുന്നില്ല, ഈ സദസ്സിൽ ഇരിക്കുന്നുണ്ട്. സഹോദരി സഹോദരന്മാരെ, മാധ്യമക്കാരെ, എല്ലാവർക്കും എൻ്റെ വിനീതമായ നമസ്കാരം. ഇന്ന് വലിയ അഭിമാനത്തോടെയാണ് ഞാൻ ഇന്ന് ശ്രീ നമ്പി നാരായണൻ്റെ പുസ്തകത്തിന് പ്രകാശനം ചെയ്യാൻ എത്തിയിരിക്കുന്നത്. അദ്ദേഹം എന്നോട് പ്രത്യേകിച്ച് നിർബന്ധിച്ചു ഇംഗ്ലീഷിൽ സംസാരിക്കണമെന്ന്. ഈ പുസ്തകത്തിൻ്റെ വാർത്ത ഒരു ദേശീയ വാർത്ത ആവട്ടെ, പക്ഷെ അത് ആരംഭിക്കുന്ന മുമ്പ് രണ്ട് വാക്കും കൂടി പറയാം. ഞാൻ ആദ്യം ശ്രീ നമ്പി നാരായണനെ കാണുന്നത് നിങ്ങളുടെ MP ആയ ശേഷമാണ്. ഞാൻ ഇവിടുത്തെ ഇലക്ഷൻ 2009 ജയിച്ചിട്ട് ഒരു ജനപ്രതിനിധിയായിട്ട് എല്ലാ ദിവസവും ജനങ്ങളെ മീറ്റ് ദ പബ്ലിക് എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞിട്ട് ഓഫീസിൽ കാണുമ്പോൾ ഒരു ദിവസം ഈ യോഗിയെ പോലെ ഇരിക്കുന്ന ഈ ഡിസ്റ്റിങ്വിഷ്ഡ് വൈറ്റ് ബിയർഡൊക്കെ വെച്ചിട്ട് ഒരു വ്യക്തി എൻ്റെ മുമ്പിൽ വന്നിരുന്നു. ഞാൻ വിചാരിച്ചു ഒരുപക്ഷെ ഒരു പെൻഷൻ്റെ കേസ് വന്നതായിരിക്കും, ഇങ്ങനെ ചിലവർ വരാറുണ്ട്. പക്ഷേ അദ്ദേഹത്തിൻ്റെ കഥ പറയാൻ തുടങ്ങിയ ശേഷം ഞാൻ ശരിക്കും ഐ വാസ് റിവിറ്റഡ്. പിന്നെ ഞാൻ അദ്ദേഹത്തിന് വേണ്ടി ഇൻറ്റർസിയേറ്റ് ചെയ്യാൻ ശ്രമിച്ചു. ഒന്ന് രണ്ട് കാര്യങ്ങൾ അദ്ദേഹത്തിന് ഞാൻ ചെയ്യാൻ ഒന്നും സാധിച്ചിട്ടില്ല എന്നാണ് സത്യം. ഐ ഡിഡ് മൈ ബെസ്റ്റ്. 2-3 എഴുത്തെഴുതി, 2-3 ആൾക്കാരോട് സംസാരിച്ചു. അവസാനത്തിൽ ന്യായം വന്നത് കോടതി വഴിക്കാണ് 2011. പക്ഷേ അദ്ദേഹത്തിനെതിരെ ചെയ്ത അന്യായം എൻ്റെ മനസ്സിൽ എപ്പോഴും ഉണ്ടായിട്ടുണ്ട്. അപ്പോൾ ഈ പുസ്തകം അദ്ദേഹം എഴുതാൻ തീരുമാനിച്ചപ്പോൾ അദ്ദേഹം എന്നെ വന്ന് കണ്ടു, ഇങ്ങനെ എഴുതുന്നുണ്ട്, ഇതിന് പ്രകാശനം ചെയ്യുമെന്ന് ചോദിച്ചപ്പോൾ ഞാൻ അപ്പോഴേ ഉടനെ പറഞ്ഞു, as soon as it is ready and അറിയിച്ചോളൂ, I will come and happily launch it in Malayalam and in English, happily. അത് അദ്ദേഹത്തിൻ്റെ MP ആയിട്ട് മാത്രമല്ല ഞാൻ പറയുന്നത്, ഒരു കൺസേൺ സിറ്റിസൺ ഓഫ് ഇന്ത്യ ഇങ്ങനൊരു കാര്യം നമ്മുടെ രാജ്യത്തിൽ സംഭവിച്ചല്ലോ എന്ന്. ഇറ്റ് ഈസ് സംതിങ് ദാറ്റ് ഈസ് ഡീപ്ലി ഷെയ്മിങ് and at the same time offers a painful, eye-opening awakening to all that can go wrong even in a democracy. Now this book is actually 2 stories in one. We have all so far been speaking about one story, but it is also the story of ISRO. It is the story of the building of an organization. When Nambi Narayanan joined ISRO, it had 23 staff. I think you may have been one of them, Madhavan Narji. And today it has 27,000 staff. He, in that famous expression, was present at the creation. And he was an integral part of the growth of ISRO into becoming one of the jewels of India's development, an organization of which every Indian can rightly be proud, an organization whose achievements found their roots in the period of time in which Nambi Narayanan served it with such dedication and such scientific brilliance. Indeed, his contributions are visible right up to the success just a couple of years ago of Mangalyaan, when India became the first country in the world to successfully place a Mars orbiter around the red planet at the first attempt. Not even the US succeeded on the first attempt. No country has been able to do it on the first attempt, and countries like China and Japan have not yet been able to do it at all. But ISRO did it, and it's thanks to the pioneering work of people like Nambi Narayanan. Equally, from those early days, as he demonstrates, they knew how to do things on a modest budget. They did so conscious that they were Indians, they were working for a developing country. And it's something that's a matter of great pride today, that the entire cost of Mangalyaan is lower than the budget of the Hollywood space movie Gravity, and only 11% of what NASA spends on its Mars orbiter. So this is the story of the organization as well. And Nambi Narayanan and Pradesh have told it extremely interestingly, so that you've got the story of the growth of this organization and his involvement in it. Yes, there are some scientific details. Arun warns us that there may be more in the English edition. But the scientific details are important to understand, perhaps, why the second story became part of this whole episode. Nambi Narayanan is today 76 years old. So what happened to him happened when he had already had a fairly distinguished track record. He was in his early 50s. He already had established a certain reputation, not just in ISRO, not just in India, but internationally in his field. There are a number of pictures of him in happier times and different international events and conferences. When he went to Princeton, he was invited to remain in America. He could have chosen to, if he wanted to, have a comfortable life and a much higher salary. He could have stayed in America and made a life for himself there. But he chose to come back to India and to serve his country. It's a choice that a few of us have made at different times in our lives. I made it somewhat later than he did. But all of us know that balance of, do you go for your own personal comforts and convenience and luxuries, or do you go for a sense of meaning, a sense of purpose in your life, a sense of making a difference to your own country and your own people? Nambi Narayanan chose that latter option. He chose to come back to India. He chose the tougher option, the less well-paying option, the less comfortable option, even in his own profession. He knew he would be working with less money, less resources, but certainly with people of great idealism and competence. The entire story of India's space, satellite, and rocket technology development is a fascinating story. At the same time, as has been hinted at by the previous speaker, there are murky and unexplained mysteries in it. We already had on the nuclear side the plane crash of Dr. Homi Bhabha in 1966, at a time when, not long after he had told Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru that India had the capacity to go nuclear if he was given the order to do so. Then we have the, to some, unexplained death, sudden and unexpected death of Dr. Vikram Sarabhai. But amongst all the mysteries that have sometimes assailed this cutting-edge organization, one scandal stands out, and that was what happened to Nambi Narayanan in 1994, the echoes of which continue to haunt us today. I think you all know the bones of the story, but there he was, arrested, dragged into jail and to interrogation, the most humiliating, inhumane interrogation, accused of all sorts of nameless sins, with a cast of characters that could have been dreamt up in a rather bad Bollywood movie, with two Maldivian women being dragged into this mystery, alleged Pakistani handlers, and an IB accuser who himself is later unmasked as a spy and leaves the organization in disgrace. Quite an extraordinary story, which is all well told in a very gripping narrative, written with novelistic flair by Prajesh Sen. But think of what a human being goes through. This is somebody who's devoted his life to the organization. This is somebody who's doing extraordinarily cutting-edge research. This is somebody who had the initiative to be able to get certain indispensable parts supplied from Russia. Remember, the Soviet Union collapses in 1991. In the early years of the 90s, Russia is very much under the strong influence and pressure of the United States. And they're collaborating with ISRO and are told not to do so. And Nambi Narayanan manages to get some things out of Russia into India in time, and he describes it in detail, including how certain airlines were unable and unwilling to carry the material he needed, and they had to charter an aircraft to bring it to Trivandrum. Does all of that, a man who is really doing something in order to give the country a leap forward in an area of technology that ultimately will lead to where we are today. And this man is arrested. The police offer to put a handkerchief on his face. He says, I don't need it, I know I'm innocent. He walks boldly in front of the cameras. I don't think there were perhaps as many cameras as we see today for this event. But he comes, he is interrogated in the most humiliating and insulting terms. He asks for water, the water is thrown in his face. People are screaming at him that you don't deserve water. His chair is kicked away, you don't deserve a chair. He is hit repeatedly on his head and his body. A man in his early 50s, a man with a distinguished international record, is treated this way. And let us face it, there was a great deal of opportunism all around. I was not in India at the time, so I know the story secondhand, but he tells it firsthand as the man who was there. There were politicians who leapt onto it as an opportunity to settle scores with the government of the day. There was the opposition that decided to make a political issue out of it to try and bring down the government of the day. There was the media, and let's not exempt the media, that reveled in the idea of sensationalizing. Scandal always sells newspapers. Today one would speak of raising TRPs if something like this happened today. And we know from a number of cases in today's media that it would have been worse today. Nambi Narayanan has very little to be grateful for, but he should be grateful that it was 1994 and not 2014, when all these channels would have gone around declaiming the nation wants to know and made an even bigger villain out of it. All of this happens. He stands his ground. The case starts collapsing at every stage. And of course, fortunately, there are still decent, fair-minded people in our country. The CBI steps in. An independent judiciary has its say. Eventually, his name is cleared. But let's face it, his career is in ruins. He is reduced to going from pillar to post, from court to court, to seek justice, to seek some compensation. The National Human Rights Commission awards him an immediate interim relief of 10 lakhs of rupees. It takes him 11 years to get that 10 lakhs. He has asked for a larger compensation. It is still being denied to him. This gentleman might have risen to become head of ISRO. He might have been a figure of great fame in this country like Dr. Madhavan Nair or the other successors, now people younger than him who have risen to that top position. He might be remembered today as the father of our space technology. There might be a stamp being issued for him. Instead, he has had to cope with the indignity, the humiliation, the pain of false accusations, of insults. And I ask you, how easy it is for us to be unjust to a human being who has served this nation. Somebody may well have planted the story, and I think we've already heard the possibility that there would have been dirty tricks from a foreign country that didn't want India to progress in a certain path as it would have progressed under Nambi Narayanan's leadership. Maybe we will only find out the truth of that when that country declassifies its own documents. But even if it was a foreign country that started this process, how many Indians were also complicit in what went wrong? How many police accepted the responsibility, the job of attacking an innocent man in the interests of their own careers? How many behaved with an inhumanity that is painfully described in this book? How many in the media cheerfully swallowed lies, accepted the motivated leak, the malicious allegation because it gave them good headlines, good copy, put them on the front page? How many politicians saw in the misfortune and suffering of an individual human being an opportunity to score petty political victories, temporary political victories that didn't even last very long in the overall span of the political fortunes of the state or of this country? This is what, unfortunately, the Nambi Narayanan case reveals about us as a society and as a system. And I speak with pain about this because I genuinely believe it could happen again. I believe that all the ingredients that poisoned, that put toxins into the atmosphere around Nambi Narayanan are still present in our society. We have opportunistic politicians. We have a meretricious media quest in the permanent quest for temporary sensationalistic gains. We have, unfortunately, careerist people in the police. We have people at every level of our society who, instead of being guided by the larger truth, guided by the conviction that we must do what is right, will only do what is suitable for them, and that too for a particular moment. That is the biggest weakness of our society today. One good man has suffered, and thank God he has survived, and he is there to tell the tale. He is telling a tale which is a cautionary tale for all of us. It is a warning to all Indians that every time we let something like this happen, we are sticking a knife into ourselves as a country. We are hurting our own society and our own prospects of future greatness. One man was denied the greatness that might have been his due. One man was made to suffer all sorts of indignities, humiliations, insults, pain. We have not even talked about what his wife went through, what his family went through. The Deputy Prime Minister you were quoting earlier, Madhuri, he said, the nation is more important than any individual. That was the line that was given by the Deputy Prime Minister. But is this truly the nation? Or is this the nation that is behaving in a way that by betraying an individual betrays itself? I believe in the case of Nambi Narayanan, India, our nation, has betrayed itself. Launching this book is a small act of restitution. As has been said, the story is not over. No one now believes that he was a spy, that any secrets were exchanged. Honest journalists, and M.G. Radhakrishnan was one of them, working for India Today with Shekhar Gupta, Jacob George and others, they already wrote in the 1995, I think, stories revealing that this story was not what it was supposed to be. And Shekhar Gupta has written an article talking about how President Abdul Kalam came up to him after the story was published and said, "Thank you for restoring the name of ISRO. Our ISRO scientist was not guilty of what he was charged, and it's time the country knew that." But despite the few good people, the few good institutions that somehow worked, let us know that there are still many for whom the cheapest, most tawdry motives will still lead to false accusations against innocent people and will still potentially lead this country into the darkness. So let us today recognize Nambi Narayanan for all that he has done for the country. Let us collectively seek his forgiveness for what our society has inflicted upon him. But let us also take heed to the warning of his book, that if this can happen to one good man, it could happen to others, and that we owe it to ourselves, in the name of the better India we all want to build, we owe it to ourselves never to let something like this happen again, and to make recompense, reward and compensation for what has happened to this one good man. With those words, I wish you all success with this book. I hope it opens the eyes of many, many millions of people, and of course that the two writers, as well as you, do very well out of the royalties too. Good luck with the publishers. Congratulations and thank you.